Nuclear may be getting big by getting small. Well, that's one possibility. Small modular reactors. The bottom line is we need more juice. We need to power our society, our homes, our vehicles, our data centers, our robots, and all that stuff. Well, Jordan Giesecke from The Limiting Factor went ahead and made a video talking about potential futures, covering both the bull and bear case, and heck, why not throw in a base case just for good measure? And all of that is what we're going to be talking about today. I'm Brian. Welcome to Future Oza. It was a great video. As I mentioned in the pre-show, you gave me a lot to think about, and I appreciate all of it. Thank you.
I'm happy to hear that. I spent months talking to people, grinding through it because everybody has a severe bias when it comes to energy production.
Mhm.
And generally, if people are in nuclear, they're biased towards it. People are in solar, they're biased towards it. So it took me a while to build my own view that was kind of independent.
I've had an opportunity to speak with two different nuclear engineers, one in the private sector and one in the military. And of course, both of them have military experience. And you know what they told me about their military experience is absolutely nothing because they are very good at guarding that and good on them. But what they were able to do is give me some perspective from outside, from the private sector, and how some of the limitations, some of the starting points for my research. And by the way, in the comments, please do share your comments. But the more you can stick to reality, the better. If something you're proposing goes too far, I'll just respond by saying we need more cold fusion. Let's just wait for that because it's 5 years away, forever. So you've got one of the big parts that you covered was thorium reactors. Now, in this video, we're going to be talking about. I'll be flipping between bull and bear for the sake of keeping the conversation exciting, because there are things that I'm excited about and parts that I'm concerned of. So, thorium reactors. I know a lot of people, especially with small modular reactors, think thorium is new, and it isn't. It's been ongoing research for 70 years. Who was it? Oak Ridge in the 60s and 70s worked on it. I know a lot of India worked on it in the 80s because they've got a lot of thorium. Um, it's it's been ongoing, but there are issues. Um, what would you see as obstacles to thorium? Like what's holding us back?
Yeah, I think that the primary thing that's holding us back is just there's at least for the past few decades, been kind of what's the opposite of a halo effect? Nuclear nuclear just hasn't been in vogue for a while, so people haven't really been working on it. And then on top of that, in the United States, which is often the primary driver of innovation, there hasn't been a demand for increased energy. If you look at the amount of energy the U.S. uses, it's been plateaued for like 20 or 30 years now. So there was no forcing function uh, to push these technologies over the line. But now that's changing. People can see that we're going to need to see a doubling or tripling of any energy required in the next 25 years. And if you listen to Elon Musk, it could be a lot more than that. So people are going, ooh, dollar signs? I'm interested in getting into this energy game.
So the beginning of your video, you bring up the post that Elon made on X saying, look, we need another terawatt. We already use what, 1.2, 1.3. We
Mhm.
need to basically double uh, as quick as feasible. Doesn't have to be today, doesn't have to be, 3 years, but as quickly as you're going to build it, the demand is going to be there. Would you say that's fair?
Yes, we're behind. There's As Elon has also said, and like he sees, we're going to start having an energy crunch in like the next 18 to 24 months, something like that. So it's just as they start scaling this, they're running into different bottlenecks along the way, and everybody's trying to address those. But so far, the overall energy demand we've been able to keep up with. But yeah, it could be several decades of energy shortages, and that creates an environment where new technologies thrive because new technologies often they require price premiums in order to support the early phases of their growth.
So just some quick math. A large nuclear reactor, a traditional one, is what, a gigawatt?
Yeah, yeah, I think they're the AP1000s, like the
Hmm.
Westinghouse, and I think
Right.
that's one of the most frequent, and I think that's around 1.2 gig 1, yeah.
So we only need 1,000 of those if we wish to meet 100% of increased demand. That's, I mean, that's why we're looking at an all of the above approach.
Yeah, and it's silly to focus on one technology because we need
Right.
all of it. Like even if all of these industries go as hard out as they can to increase production, it's still probably not going to be enough because Elon's talking about 1 terawatt hour of additional energy or power just for compute. And on top of that, we're going to need additional energy for EVs, the general growth of the grid. If robots take off, we're going to need a lot of at least the same amount of energy for robots as we do for data centers. So if things really took off, if all these technologies go as exponentially as we think they will in the next few decades, it's uh, tripling or quadrupling sounds more reasonable.
Well, I'm going to disagree because, as you know, technology is cyclical. No, nope, it's not cyclical. Uh, well, but once we hit a certain level of compute, that's enough, right? I mean, I have it on good authority that uh, we'll never need more than 200 megabytes of storage on our computer or 2 megs of RAM or something like that. And for that matter, the patent office should be closed by this time in 1903
Mhm.
because everything's been invented. We find more uses for what we have. And compute is, we have a lot of questions to answer. And a lot of the questions that haven't been answered because the compute required is too substantial.
And if you look at this very broadly, humans have unlimited wants.
Mm,
And to get
mm,
things that you want, it requires work and the ability to do work. Energy is the ability to do work. So, energy is the substrate that the entire economy grows from. And that's why so many people are saying, well, you know, there's ways that we can solve, for instance, the US debt problem just by having more and cheaper energy because it just solves so many problems at a
mm,
fundamental. It's kind of like the interest rate. It, they say the interest rate is the kind of like the gravity for like the
mm,
stock market. It's you're adjusting the gravity, financial gravity. Well, energy is, that's kind of your um, the cost of energy is kind of like your gravity level for getting things done.
hmm.
So, like, we wouldn't be getting much done if we were still powering the economy with wood.
Oh, yeah, that's actually, I will agree with you. I'll give you 1 point, 1 point for that. So let me throw out some some bull bullet points. Um, One of the big obstacles to nuclear is that so many of the reactors are bespoke. If we were to mass produce them, and I don't mean millions, I mean even dozens would likely achieve economy of scale, according to a graph that you showed in your video. Guys, go watch his video. It's out now. A link in the description. That would that would help, right? Like satellites cost millions and millions of dollars. Well, Starlinks don't because they mass produce them. Is that the same philosophy?
Yeah, and surprisingly, it doesn't you don't have to produce. That was one of the things that surprised me the most, is that there's 2 scaling factors for nuclear reactors. There's the size of the reactor, and there's the number that you produce. So the optimal is, like, between 100 and 300 megawatts of power. If you produce something large, extremely large, it's difficult to get to scale because it takes so much capital to build each one of those things. And as you said, in the past, and this is something they've been trying to correct in the past couple of decades, each of those was bespoke. But if you can increase the number that you're producing and make all of them pretty much the same, kind of standardize them, yeah, you can cut the cost significantly, at least 50% or more.
Mhm. And if you think about it from just a manufacturing perspective, of course it makes sense. If you ask me to make one thing, it's very expensive. But even look at track homes. By building the same house over and over, you get an economy of scale.
Yeah, and to finish that point, uh, yeah, around 7 reactors is where gained after you've only built 7, that's where you've already gained a significant cost reduction when it comes to scale. And that's why the company Allo, for example, they're doing 7 test reactors to start off with. Because if they did just one, it would cost like twice as much just to build one on a per unit basis. They want to show that, hey, we only need to build 7 of these, and we already got the cost down to where it's economic and useful.
Now, one thing you pointed out is that these early projects will be more expensive because, of course, they will. They have to. That's the nature of recovering your capital. But I would argue that you don't have to compete on price on a per kilowatt hour basis, on a per kilowatt basis, if the demand is willing to pay that higher price. If the power is just not available at any price, I'll pay more.
Exactly, and it's not uniform. The grid isn't uniform everywhere. There's, like, for instance, uh, Tesla's data center down in Memphis. Th you know
Natural gas.
Yeah, natural gas, for example. Probably a better, example is at 3 Mile Island, they've restarted that nuclear reactor. Now, if they built, like, new, natural gas and solar, it would be, like, 8 to 10 cents per kilowatt hour, something like that, but they restarted the 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor because it's clean power, it's reliable power, and it's perfect for, like, an AI data center, so they're willing to pay, like, 13 cents, per kilowatt hour for that, and they would probably be willing to pay a lot more because for these AI data centers, those GPUs are so expensive that the power used for those data centers is actually a fraction of the total cost.
Right. It's something like, to generate a 5-second video uses like, about a kilowatt. I mean, it's 13 pennies to make that video. What difference does it make to me if it's 13 pennies or 8 pennies for something of that high of value to me? And that's one reason we could see this work. Another thing working potentially in favor of nuclear is that the solar tariffs are crushingly burdensome.
Could you clarify on that? The solar
Oh,
tariff?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Biden passed 100% tariffs on Chinese solar panels, and the overwhelming majority of solar panels made are made in China. The US doesn't
Oh.
have much solar panel manufacturing, and what they do is not very large. So that will cause either an increase in energy prices or a decrease in solar deployments, or more likely both.
I wasn't aware of those solar tariffs.
Oh,
It's something I think I heard about, but it's not something I've really looked into.
yeah.
But it's also worth noting that solar isn't as cheap as people think it is because it requires firming to back it up. I think there
Mhm.
was I forget what the guy's name is, but he was important in energy in the last administration, and he was basically saying, well, whatever kind of technology they use, whether you use natural gas or solar, etc., it's all currently around $100 per megawatt hour at the moment, which is like 10 cents per kilowatt hour. So you'll see people putting out, all right, solar is only 20 to 30 cents per kilowatt hour. Well, you're only talking about the incremental capacity that you're adding to the grid. You're not talking about what it costs in total to backstop that solar with natural gas, for instance.
Or
So
mega packs. Yeah.
yeah, I'm all in favor of solar, and I'm all in favor of all these technologies. We need as many as possible, but we need a mix of them. Not any single one of them is a catch-all solution for anything or everything. So
Right.
I'm bullish on nuclear in the long term, but that's contingent upon how quickly they can get the cost down and how much backup we need for solar because solar is the cheapest and most abundant.
Sure. And let me give you some of my more bearish arguments. While Starlink proved that you could build space grade satellites at a low price with mass production, especially in the early days, the failure rate was higher than you would like for terrestrial nuclear power. Is that a concern with mass production, or is the opposite true?
Oh, in terms of, you're concerned about the failure rates for,
Yes. For cut cost cutting, yes.
okay, so I think the primary background concern here might be, like a nuclear meltdown or something like that that causes is that the concern, or is it
Not something that big.
Mhm.
It could be something as little as, uh, we've got 10 or 20 or 30 deployed, and we just realized this valve is a pain in the butt. We need to go back and replace this. I mean, it it could be little problems in one thing can compound to much bigger problems at scale.
I would say it's the nature of the product wouldn't allow that. Like, if you have Starlink satellites that you're sending up, if they fail, you can just send them to reentry and to burn up. It's like, let's move fast, let's get these things out here. If 80% of them work, that's fine. But with nuclear, it's going to be more. Even if they dramatically reduce the regulation, it's still going to be heavily regulated, and there's going to be a lot of eyes on it. And I don't. They're not going to put anything out that has a risk of failure. Um, maybe they'll run into issues where maybe the uptime isn't as high as they'd like, and they'd make improvements there. But I think from a reliability perspective, my guess would be that they're going to be extremely reliable, even the first ones that come out.
One thing that was pointed out to me by a nuclear engineer is that it doesn't matter how small your reactor is, Department of Energy requires physical security, which is roughly the same regardless of scale. That's a cost. That's a cost that's going to be more or less fixed regardless of the output, meaning a higher percentage of the cost. And for that matter, if we had another 1,000 reactors, it's not impossible. Could we even find 1,000 people who would pass the background check to work there? That becomes an issue.
The first question I would have is that also applied to micro scale nuclear reactors of less than 10 megawatts.
I'm so I looked up on the Department of Energy website and it does not specify any difference based on size. And that's consistent with what my friend told me.
Mm,
Uh, but we weren't talking about under 10. We were talking just SMRs generally. So I
mm.
didn't think to ask that clarifying question.
Well, that would be a that I would be interested to hear the answer to that one, because there's a reasons why a lot of these startups are starting with nuclear reactors of 10 megawatts or less, because it makes they can get their they can wet their beak, they can learn about the technology with a lot less burdensome regulation. And then
Interesting.
after they've mastered those, then they're going, okay, after we have this thing down, after we built 7 of them to prove it out, then we can either build a factory to build thousands of those, or we can increase the size by an order of magnitude. Um,
Sure.
so I would think that even if, in terms of the security, going back to our no, that's going too far out there using Optimus as security. That might freak
Well,
people
that,
out.
yeah.
But in terms of security, if you have a 100 to 300 megawatt nuclear reactor, uh, and the economics, I think having somebody there like security to babysit it or watch over it, I would assume that the economics would work out, because it would be a fraction of the cost of the project.
Now, for fun, do you remember what Elon said the total power consumption of the Texas AI compute center would be upon completion?
I know recently he mentioned 1 gigawatt, but I think that was for Cortex.
So
Not
he
Cortex,
said
for Colossus, not Cortex.
he said once fully scaled, Giga Texas will be consuming 500 megawatts.
That's bigger than I thought.
That's
That's pretty.
eye-watering is what that is.
Yeah,
That's
that's huge.
yeah, that so you'd only need 50 of those micro nuclear power plants to keep it running, which is
Wow, that
which
puts it in perspective, doesn't
that
it?
puts it in
It's just
perspective.
those microreactors just aren't feasible at scale. You need at least 100
But
megawatts.
what I hear you saying is
Mm,
the regulations on building go-karts is different than the regulation on building cars. Let's get good at building go-karts and then we'll build a car. And I
mhm,
think that's reasonable. No one, I don't think any reasonable person is saying, let's build a cajillion 10 megawatt plants. If they
mm.
are, I would love to hear their explanation as to why that makes sense. Because to me, it doesn't make sense, but I haven't looked into it enough to have a super critical opinion.
Yeah, and I think going back to the security thing, I'm still chewing on that. It seems like if you're using small modular reactors, that it's impossible for them to melt down, and they don't use weapons grade fuel in them or create any kind of, uh, you
Could
know,
still make a dirty bomb.
um, that's a good point.
Mhm.
But there's so many. Yeah, it seems like, compared to the risk involved, it seems like a case to look at that regulation again. to see what really makes sense. Do you need security there all the time, and how much security do you need? So that you
And
keep
how
trying.
much is a good question
Mm.
because
That's one question that nobody has brought up with me yet, so that's a really good one.
hey, it's why you agree to come back on the show, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, it gives me ideas. I have to look into that.
And one question I had for a lot of people is if nuclear is such a good investment, why do they struggle so mightily to attract the investment money needed to move forward?
Well, they are attracting huge amounts of money, both from the US government and private investment.
I don't count the US government money. I think that's something that just
Okay.
needs to happen. Governments do support
Mhm,
the all of the above approach, which is helpful. But I mean, private investment, you don't see the kind of like a solar plant. You'll see private investors just build one. But
mhm.
with nuclear, they're a lot more skeptical. They're a lot more hesitant, and they really want some kind of loan guarantees before they'll invest more than a couple $1 billion on a project that might cost tens, if not hundreds of billions.
Now, you're talking like, prior, large nuclear projects, like a gigawatt? Or are you talking about these future advanced and, 4th generation nuclear reactors?
Are Will the fourth generation ones have enough private funding to build them all the way out?
As far as I can tell, they're doing a good job of attracting capital, and what they're running into is other issues, like, for instance, the fundamental economics of the project itself.
Oh,
Like yeah,
yeah. Like you were saying with NewScale, in the
yeah,
video, you guys go over and watch it,
mm,
um, because, yes, NewScale was gonna end up at instead of what was it supposed to be like 50 or 60, 55 cents a kilowatt hour or yeah, and then it ended up at or 5.5 cents, it ended up at 13 after a massive IRA subsidy,
mhm,
and they said, we're out.
yeah.
We're probably gonna overrun from here. Who is gonna buy this power?
Yeah. So there's a lot of investment flowing into the space, but what you run into is it actually commercially viable? This comes back to the what I was saying at the beginning of the video, which is that what we need is a period of sustained high electricity prices or some sort of specific form of demand that can afford to pay those higher electricity prices and is happy to, like AI data centers. I
And
think
cat girls. Mhm.
yeah. So if we didn't have the current environment where we're expected to see huge increases in electricity demand and certain applications that are willing to pay more for that electricity, I would have said that nuclear is dead. So because the investment can only get you so far, the investment gets you to a place, that initial investment, to where you can say, okay, we've got something that might be commercially viable now.
Mhm. Thorium has a problem with corrosion, is that right? Yeah, the I mean, that's a problem. It's a physics problem. It's also an engineering problem. It may boil down to a physics problem. Has that been addressed successfully?
I haven't looked deeply into that. I was mostly looking at the broader economics, rather than the specific technical challenges that,
Sure.
each of these technologies has, because there's dozens of different types of, 4th
Sure.
generation nuclear reactors.
In the video, Jordan shows a chart of deployments upcoming, both over 10 megawatt and under, and it lists the type of reactor. And I did not know there were that many types of reactor, so that was very eye opening to me. So, looking at the economics, it's slow.
Yeah, it's gonna be if we do get advanced nuclear reactors, we're talking 2035 and beyond if we're gonna see them at any serious scale. There's plenty of companies saying that, hey, they're gonna build their first prototype reactors here in the next few years, but every time that they set deadlines, those deadlines get moved. The past administration, they were very supportive of nuclear, and this administration is as well. So that gives me some hope. Each administration seems to be pushing harder on it, and public acceptance seems to be increasing. There seems to be a broader awareness of the of this deep need for energy from any source. So there seems to be this snowball that's rolling around. Not just nuclear, but energy in general, that might actually help get some of these things over the line.
Now, I don't know if I don't remember if I mentioned it. I got to get this in before it's too late. We are going to be at the summer meetup in Michigan, June 20th and 21st. Tickets on sale now, teslamichigan.org. please join us. It's a fun event. Simon from Tesla Light Shows will be there. A lot of people. We've got guests coming in from Europe to speak. We've got people of all ages and all kinds of backgrounds who will be on stage joining us for the presentations. One thing I did want to say, because you were talking about public acceptances, I still hear a lot of people claiming that there's NIMBYism that stops it, but I don't see that. I don't encounter that. I think that generation is now aging out. I think the people who are just kind of afraid of nuclear are not certainly not vocal. I don't know people who oppose nuclear because of its safety or lack thereof, but because it's slow and expensive.
Exactly. All the complaints I hear from people in my videos about the Georgia nuclear plant, it wasn't about, oh, I hate having this nuclear reactor nearby. It's, my God, it's caused our electricity prices to skyrocket. So it's about the cost.
That's unfortunate. And I would point out, half jokingly, that we've stopped, as you pointed out, we've stopped mining uranium. And that means we can only get uranium from countries that we are hostile with, like Canada, which is
Yeah,
a half joke, but
yeah.
we should maybe not be hostile to Canada's
Yeah,
because,
there's the mining of the uranium itself, and then there's the processing. So the
yeah.
U.S. stopped mining it, but I think we still do some processing here.
Hmm.
So
So, guys, in the comments, what kind of questions do you have? What kind of thoughts do you have about nuclear? I would say that neither Jordan nor I are 100% bearish or bullish. I I think I understand the value of it. I definitely understand the value of an all of the above approach. Um, but I don't think that any one future promise should make us entirely rule out the others, with the possible exception of coal, because coal, I would say, has been outmoded. The only thing it's really good for is making iron, but that's maybe a different matter. But we can figure that out. And I would say that subscribe to me, subscribe to Jordan. I have the luxury of watching his videos a week early because I support him on Patreon, and it's wonderful. It's a great thing to do, and it's what keeps him in business. Because he doesn't make 15 videos a week like some lunatics like me, but he is able to do that because of support from viewers like you, is my PBS pitch for you. So, guys, in the comments, what did we miss? What did we misunderstand? Leave it. I suppose we can let the comments be optional this time, but you will get bonus points for them. And everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you, clever robots in Michigan.